Jessica, welcome to the podcast. It's super exciting to see you again. For people who aren't familiar with you and all the amazing stuff you're doing with HAELO, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and all that y'all have going on?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for bringing me on. Excited to talk more about it. My name is Jessica. I work as the head of performance and partner relations at HAELO. So HAELO's a pEMF therapy that stands for Pulsed Electro Magnetic Field therapy. It's a bit of a mouthful, but stick with me on it. We essentially are using this technology to communicate directly with the cells. So it's kind of like a communication pathway. The body's electric, so we're sending these electromagnetic signals in. That's essentially training your cells to perform their job more efficiently. And when your cells are performing more efficiently, everything else in the body starts to operate better as well. That's where you start to see, your recovery accelerate, your sleep improves, your energy levels start to stabilize, your nervous system, all of the stress resiliency and all of that starts to become better as well. So the technology itself, it's been around for over 50 years. But HAELO's kind of taken it and made it more designed for the high performer. We've simplified the technology. We've made it a press and play system through an app. So everything that we do from the time that you purchase the device to the time that you start using it to the time you're feeling benefits is all completely simplified for the user. So it's a lot to learn about the technology, but as far as HAELO goes, we've made it quite easy for you to actually use it and see the benefits pretty quickly.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. pEMF for the athlete. Getting into that a little bit more because I'm sure some people are familiar with pEMF and some people are like, wait a second, electromagnetic field? What the heck is that? Are
Yeah,
we back in physics class here?
we are. I
So,
know.
just kind of diving into that a little bit more that way. What exactly is pEMF and what is the kind of origin or background of pEMF as a whole from like a treatment modality standpoint, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. I'll do the best I can to describe that in this in like a non-scientific way because I'm no scientist, but I've been around the technology for about 10 years now, so I'm pretty familiar with the way it works. But pEMF, it again, it stands for pulse electromagnetic field therapy. So if you've heard of like negative EMFs, which most people are familiar with, I would say more people are familiar with the negative side of EMFs. Those are very high band frequencies that are found in like Wi-Fi signals, Bluetooth signals, all of the technology around us, and we hear about kind of the maybe more negative impacts that those signals have on our health. pEMF therapy is kind of like the opposite end of that spectrum. So we're using these beneficial electromagnetic fields to communicate with the body. So a lot of pEMF therapies out there, there's different modalities for it, different ways to drive those signals to the cell. HAELO happens to use this 5.5 pound coil, which I'll show you. I brought it in here for show and tell, naturally. So this is our coil right here. Excuse the blur. But this is about a 5.5 pound coil, and really what you do is you just place it right on the body, and you press play on one of our programs. And as soon as you press play, those signals are actually being delivered through this field, this therapeutic field, and they're going to start talking to your cells. They're going to tell your cells to repair, to stimulate, to energize, and really just start having the body, perform better. And that's not just like performance in terms of energy, it's performance in terms of better sleep and faster recovery and all of those things. So, yeah, the technology is very grounded. Again, it's been around for a really long time. It's frequency, everything runs on frequencies, even all of the cells in our bodies and all of our different organs and everything all runs on frequencies. So it's kind of like an advanced tuning fork is maybe the best way that I can really simplify what this technology is. And a full body battery charger. So it's charging you as an electric being rather than focusing on some of the other things and really just helping to get to the base foundation of what makes us perform well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And to the point that you made, I think it's great to have something that intervenes on a bit more of a localized cellular level, if you will. I think a lot of times we can be so caught up in the big picture that we
Mhm.
forget about some of the underlying physiological things that are occurring, right? So if I'm working with an athlete, they underwent an ACL reconstruction procedure that way. and I realize, hey, their quad is freaking weak and their knee is super puffy and swollen. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get their quad stronger. Okay, yeah, I can do that through exercise, but I think that you still have to support the underlying physiological process of healing, right? Like there's a traumatic injury and then surgery, which is essentially another injury, tendon graft harvest, dissection, and so on. That way, it's like, we really have to find ways, in my opinion, to intervene more at that like localized level and not just big picture. We have to zoom in and zoom out simultaneously, if you
Yeah.
will. And I think that's the kind of thing that really sets athlete outcomes apart when you do that is, sure, maybe I don't need to use pulsed EMF as part of an ACL recovery, but is it going to hurt their recovery? Absolutely not. If anything, just going through some of the different things that you mentioned as you were discussing there, I realized like some of the different things like sleep, for example, like athletes when they're on painkillers and recovering from major surgeries and they're not able to be active, their sleep usually takes a real quick nosedive. So finding ways to support some of these other like processes that we know are important for people during this time, to me, just makes the recovery that much more smooth.
Right. And I mean, think about the importance and the significance behind a good sleep, not just a sleep where you're closing your eyes and you're waking up, 8 hours later, but an actual efficient sleep is where recovery happens, when you fall into those deep sleep cycles. So if you're, unable to get there, then your recovery automatically is not going to be as efficient as it would be if you are having, those efficient sleep. So HAELO kind of it takes care of a lot in one. I like to call it kind of that all-in-one wellness companion. I mean, it's yes, there's the recovery, the physical recovery, but there is the mental recovery side that people, are talking about more and more nowadays as well when it comes to high performers. It's not just about treating the body as a physical entity. It's about treating the body as let's focus on the mind as well. Let's focus on, the nervous system and really make sure that the body is functioning in all levels. So I think HAELO does a really good job at kind of answering that call of solving that problem that people are looking for, which is this is mental and this is physical. And this is doing it by kind of communicating directly with the nervous system to make sure that certain benefits, take place, which is a really, really incredible part of this technology.
To the point that you made on the nervous system as well, like that's one of those things that I think, at least speaking on my own experience, I think I took it for granted, right? Like, you're going through school, taking your classes to get your degree and all that, and you get these neuroscience classes and you think, oh, I'm never going to need that. I'm going to work with athletes, right? Like, why do I need to know spinal cord pathways? Why do I need to know regions of the brain and what they do? I'm not going to work with anyone that has injuries to those things. I'm going to work with athletes, and all their injuries are, muscular, skeletal. And then you start to realize like the nervous system is always listening and it kind of regulates and dictates all of those other things. The muscles can't fire without some kind of signal from the nervous system. And I think the research is showing more and more that issues relating to the nervous system, whether we recognize them or not, are impacting what we see from an MSK standpoint quite regularly, right? Whether that's, you mentioned the sleep side of things, but even just this overall sympathetic, parasympathetic balance that we see in athletes. And this is something that we've brought up on several podcasts that I've recorded and not yet released, is this imbalance where some athletes are just constantly on. They're wired. The throttle is stuck up and they can't put the brakes on. And then other athletes actually fall into the opposite trap where they're too relaxed for whatever reason, and you can't actually get them to throttle up. And I think that having some kind of tool or some kind of implement that helps athletes to throttle up or throttle down when they need to is absolutely essential to perform in modern day kind of lifestyle and demands for athletes, right? Whether that's the 1 a.m., cross Atlantic flights to play at a pro football game in the UK, because that's a thing now, to the actual environment that the games are occurring in, bright lights, late at night, different time zones, all these different stressors that they're presented with. It's like, this is a unique performance environment that regardless of what we do, we can never fully prepare them for. So having tools in our toolbox that help them to throttle up and throttle down depending on what that situation presents and what they need at the time,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is super essential to optimize modern performance.
No, and I love that you hit on many key points there, especially when it comes to travel and regulation and all of those things. Like regulating the body is such a I would say underappreciated aspect of full body recovery. And I know you mentioned that, and I think most people, I guess when we were growing up too, playing our sports, whatever it was, like you never focused on the mental side of things. This is a very new conversation, and focusing on the nervous system, and you see these high performers and what it can do when you're not actually paying attention to that part of you, right? Like performance will increase if you can take care of the body as a whole. And you said bright lights, and my mind was immediately like turned on because I wear my blue light blockers before bed. I'm like, keep the bright lights away. If I travel in an airport past like a certain time, I'll have my blue light blockers on. There's too many lights going on. It's not good for us, not good for our performance and stuff. And it's true. When you're a professional athlete and you're surrounded by all of that noise and your nervous system is super, super high strung and you end a game, let's say at like 10 p.m., you go back, but like your mind is still turned on, right? Your body is still awake to that performance you were just doing. So it's not like you're going to go home, shower, and just go to bed and have that be it, right? So I think it's very important to focus on that aspect of performance and how can I help my body wind down after performance? How can I get my mind to kind of quiet instead of staying tuned into something that is no longer happening. And I think pEMF therapy is one of the most beneficial things for that, especially when it comes to travel. And that's one of the reasons why, again, HAELO simplifying the whole pEMF experience. We've created this device that is portable. It can be wrapped up. It's 11 pounds, so you take it with you, on your trips, and it's something that you can use in your hotel room or wherever you're going, where you have a game in Cleveland one night, LA the next, and then you're down in Houston, whatever it is. So there's something for that now through this portable pEMF therapy, which is going to treat the body, as that very complex being. We're gonna take care of sleep and restoration after travel as well, and all the things. So there's a lot going on with it.
Even going back to the component of the cellular level mechanisms and the stressors that athletes and really many individuals are facing in today's day and age, right? Like there's an athlete that we worked with earlier this year who just flew all the way to Hawaii from Australia for the Kona Ironman, which is incredible, but it's like that's also a lot of time traveling, new environment, and so on that way. On the cellular level, I believe the technical term for this is oxidative stress responses that occur. And when that happens, there's this imbalance between production of reactive oxygen species and your own antioxidant defenses that your body has that can, ultimately damage cells or maybe lead to positive adaptations depending on where that balance is. Is there too much reactive oxygenation species compared to what your body can handle? Or is it flipped where, hey, we've got the ability to handle this? Because I think, people hear all the time, oh, eat antioxidants, but they kind of forget what that's actually doing for their body from a cellular level. And I think, at least from my standpoint, anything that can be done to support that balance from not being tipped in the wrong direction, right? Anything that we can do to take that metaphorical seesaw that occurs from an oxidative stress standpoint and tip it back into favor or keep it balanced at a level that we're comfortable and happy with, I think is essential, because the athletes that we work with, the active individuals that we work with, they're performing at ages and levels that I don't think any of us have ever really considered before, right? Like, did we expect to see multiple NFL players playing into their 40s? Did we expect MLB players to be playing into their 40s at high levels, right? Like, it's one thing to be there. It's another thing to perform at a high level. And we have to understand, like, part of athletics is not just peak performance now, but also like, hey, this athlete wants to perform in 20 years. What kind of things do we have to do today to help make sure that that is a possibility for them? Because that envelope that's being pushed on what the age limit for performance is only going to continue to get pushed further and further back. There's always going to be someone who goes further than everyone else and breaks the mold, and there's going to be more that want to follow. And having adjuncts to support that is absolutely essential to make that happen for them.
Yeah, we're gonna have 60-year-old running backs out on the field in no time. They're gonna be totally fine. They're gonna be kicking all the young guys' butts. But no, you mentioned a key word again, balance. Balance is huge. And I think that the players who are seeing that sort of longevity in their sport are the ones that can hone in on, the right practices to create that balance. And that might look different for different athletes, but really, really finding ways to find that equilibrium is crucial, if you're looking to excel in your sport, not just for this season or next season or, 3 seasons from now, but for a very long time. And I think that that's a very prominent thing that people are looking for now. They don't want to just play their sport for a year. They want to be the best at it, and in order to be the best, you kind of have to be around for a little while. So, finding ways for that balance is crucial. Finding ways to keep the body in balance, the body and mind, the nervous system, all those things. They all need to kind of be able to regulate, and that's where the term resilience comes in, resiliency. And a lot of athletes, I think, struggle to really find that because they are, maybe too far in one direction, too far in that performance sympathetic area, or maybe unable to get, really into that headspace if they're too relaxed. But I kind of think the too relaxed comes from being like a little frozen. Sometimes you get so stuck in sympathetic that you're in that now, like you're in that freeze mode. It's not necessarily like a true relaxation that you're in. And that's why when people come to us, sometimes, we're running HAELO sessions and they're like, oh, I'm really tired. I need a lot of energy. And our first thought is like, okay, well, we could run, one of our performance programs called Level Up on you. And then the second thought is always, are you really needing, an energy boost right now, or are you needing to shift your nervous system so that it can actually restore? And once the nervous system restores and you're able to actually, relax more is when your energy can start to naturally increase again. So we typically always go for running, a calm program on somebody who's coming up to us asking for a lot of energy, because sometimes you just need support actually relaxing the body before you can get that natural energy to kick in.
Right. Now, one of the things I notice is usually with pEMF, people don't really feel a lot of things happening compared to other modalities in the moment, right? Like maybe they're getting like an e-stim treatment done somewhere else. Like they can feel the stim pulses, they can feel muscular contractions from that, right? Or maybe we're doing some kind of agent to heat tissue up and they can feel the warming effect that way. But with pEMF, it's different. Like obviously you'll feel effects later on, but you might not necessarily feel like this like electrical current or this heating effect or anything like that in the moment, which I'd imagine athletes probably find interesting, because I feel like a lot of times people are used to feeling things and they seek
Yeah.
that out. They want to feel it. They want a sensation, but sometimes that's not there depending on the modality.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's two types of pEMF, which I can get into a little bit, but you're 100% right. A lot of times, most people these days are looking for a really quick fix or something to be very felt in the moment. And pEMF it's really not that. It can be a quick fix, depending on what you're looking for, and what your body's needing. There are people who will go into a session, run recover, run calm, something like that, and they immediately have the best sleep of their life that night, or they immediately are feeling all the discomfort in their body go away pretty quickly. So it really depends on where you're at going into the program, but this technology is really designed to be gentle and supportive. And I think, there's always going to be those cold plunges and those e-stim devices and all of these things that are more designed to like activate the body, really like activate to get you into a certain recovery zone. But not all modalities should be so, I would say, agitating or, activating. I think it's important to have a mix in there where some of these modalities you're using are really just there to support you and guide you into this recovery mode, instead of kind of fighting against the nervous system. So I think pEMF is one of the best modalities when it comes to let's just sit down for a session. You've already done the other stuff. You've had your massage gun out. You've been, having your legs massaged, all the things, but let's now just like sit with the HAELO, let's sit with the coil there, and let's start to tell your cells, tell the body to kickstart that recovery process. So it's it's designed this way for a reason. And then to take that one step further, there are pEMF devices that you can feel. They're higher intensity pEMF devices. They're using a much higher Gauss level, which is what the magnetic fields are measured by, compared to a lower intensity pEMF, which is using obviously a much lower Gauss level. And HAELO fits into that lower intensity pEMF, so it's something that can be used daily, multiple times a day. We really believe at HAELO that low intensity and gentle delivery of these frequencies is a very beneficial thing. It's very, very good for the body, and not to say that high intensity pEMF is not good. It's great for so many things. And high intensity pEMF and low intensity pEMF almost can't be compared, because they are designed for such different things. And then HAELO is just kind of in a really awesome position in that we're a targeted pEMF, but we're also a general pEMF. So there's pEMF mats, which are a little bit more of a general therapy. There's high intensity pEMF, which is more of like a targeted um, pain relief therapy. And then there's HAELO, which we say kind of sits right in the middle of that, which is a targeted therapy because of the coil that we use, but it's also a very general, whole body, very comprehensive pEMF therapy, which is a very cool thing that we can say about our technology. It does a lot in one.
Yeah, no, I think that's essential to have. And as part of that too, you mentioned before about how you make it easy, having a lot of preset kind of programs, parameters, and that sort of thing. What goes into the parameter setting for using pEMF? Because I know there's a few different variables that can be played with, right? The frequency, the intensity, the duration, and some of these things might be standardized and some of them might still be, being developed that way. So what kind of leads you to turn the dial up or down on those different things based on different conditions or needs that athletes might have?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're right. There's a lot of variables when it comes to the way pEMF therapies are designed, and there's conversation about what's best, and maybe, there isn't a best, and there's just, pEMF therapy is just great all the way around. There's also different waveforms. A lot of the higher intensity will use like a square wave, which is like this. If we go way back to science class back in high school. And then you have sine waves, which is the very common wave in pEMF. It's a very smooth wave. That's what HAELO uses. We use sine waves as our waveform. And then we actually take it one step further in that we're patent pending for the way we deliver frequencies. So HAELO is delivering multiple frequencies to the cells at a time in each session. So we're actually changing these layers throughout each program, which is a very different thing from a lot of the way that other pEMF will deliver frequencies. They have maybe 1 to 5 single frequency settings, whereas HAELO has over 20 programs, and within each of those programs, you're receiving 75 to 200 frequencies layered throughout that program. So it's kind of like uh, we say it's like listening to a full song, versus just a single instrument is kind of the way that HAELO delivers our frequencies, which is again, it's all just to surround the body in these beneficial frequencies so that, recovery can really take place in a very efficient way. So that's kind of where we are. But yeah, to your point, pEMF, it comes in all different shapes and sizes. There's different modalities, there's different applicators. There's different technologies behind it. And, each company out there that creates their frequencies, they kind of they'll have their frequency experts, they'll have their, scientists, their engineers. There's a lot of things that go into actually creating this technology that make it, the technology that it is. And it's certainly not an easy thing to create and to be an expert in. But luckily there are people out there who really understand this tech and how to make it, the technology that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things that at the end of the day, I really believe in, I call it Occam. I think it's called Occam's razor that way, this principle that, like, at the end of the day, the thing that is often the simplest is probably the best. So for me, it's like, I think on one hand, it's cool to get lost in the sauce and it's cool to get off the deep end with all of the different things that you can do with pEMF from a frequency, intensity, other parameter adjustment standpoint. But on the other hand, I think in general, if you keep it simple and you know that, hey, these certain settings are good for X, Y, and Z, and you're able to apply them, then go with that. Because I think a lot of times you almost create this analysis by paralysis from obsessing over getting the numbers and the formulas correct, when in reality, just delivering some type of stimulus is probably going to be better than not delivering any, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm definitely true with regard to the stimulus. I think, the base foundation of what pEMF is it is that pulsed electromagnetic field. But there's a lot of things that you can do with that field that maybe can make it, even better. And you can go into like this whole thing regarding the way that frequencies interact with every individual thing in our body, and that everything operates on its own individual frequency. And there's a very like precise way to try to tune these frequencies back up. But it really is as simple as your cells are batteries. And just like you charge your phone every night, your batteries in your body need to be treated the same way. And if you're not doing anything to recharge the cells in your body, the batteries that make us function, then you're going to see that performance decrease. You're going to see that performance really suffer because you're not actually going to the root of the body, which is our cells. So recharge your body the way you recharge your phone, I think, is a good way to think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on top of that as well is we think about some of the other things that people turn to instead of PMF for solving some of the many different conditions that they have, right? And I think a lot of them have side effects, for better or for worse. And at least for me, I don't see a lot of potential risks compared to some of these other things that people take to you know address some of these different symptoms with pEMF. It's like, hey, taking these pills, taking NSAIDs, and so on that way have long-term side effects. That's well documented in the research. I don't see as many potential side effects with pEMF compared to some of these other things.
Yeah, and most pEMF, I think, will kind of make the claim that they're not a medical device. I know HAELO, we're not a medical device, so we don't really make any claims, and we don't talk about HAELO in that sort of light. HAELO it's a wellness technology, and recovery is a big, big element of that. But pEMF therapy, pEMF technologies, they're completely non-invasive. It's a very cool way to think about. You can actually communicate with your cells with something that is so non-invasive, which I think is a really, really cool element of the technology. And you can just kind of set it and forget it almost. You can just press play and it'll run through. And it's not supplying your body with anything that it doesn't already have. It's just telling your body to use what it has better. So that's why you won't see, a lot of the side effects or anything like that. It's because it's not, inserting anything into your body that isn't already there. It's just charging your body, helping your cell potential operate better and really just raising your voltage, your cellular voltage. And so everything else is going to start to function better as well. So that's why you're not going to see, side effects like you will with other things. Yeah, so it is a super, super complex, but very easy and simple technology too when you start to really dissect it.
Absolutely. What do you feel like has been the most unique application that you've seen for pEMF?
Oh gosh, that's a good question because it is used for the widest variety of things I think I've ever seen. It is very special in that way. Like people will use it for obviously things like physical recovery. That's a huge one, but the sleep support is probably like the one that I hear the most of it being like a life changer for people, where they come back after the first session or a few sessions and they're like, I wasn't sleeping well for 3 years and I ran like 2 programs on HAELO and suddenly I'm finally sleeping through the night and it's like efficient, good sleep. And so the sleep is probably the one I hear the most about. But gosh, I don't even know what the weirdest application would be. Like the strangest thing people use it for, because they use it for everything. If you think about like anything someone could be recovering from or trying to optimize in their life or like digestive support. We have a program for that. So people will use it for digestive support, like all sorts of balancing within the system. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this technology. So I don't even know how to answer that question. Everything is kind of I'll hear things from customers all the time. I'll hear things from our partners, from our clients, and it's all remarkable. So it's yeah, it's wide ranging, very wide ranging.
Yeah, almost like a jack of all trades type of
Yeah.
intervention, if you will. And I think it's interesting to hear you bring up the GI side of that as well. It makes me think back to a podcast we did earlier this year with Jill Lane because she brought that up and she was talking about how many athletes have gut health issues and how it's not discussed on the impact on performance as much as maybe it should be discussed. But once you start to like listen to her talk, it's like, yeah, I could see how that would impact things for a not so positive way that way. So I think finding ways to regulate all those things is essential. I mean, I think the other thing too is just thinking about some of the work that people like Harvey Martin are doing right now around like EMFs in general. Like electromagnetic fields are everywhere, and they're not all positive. They're not all having a beneficial effect on your body. So balancing out the bad ones with some good ones might not be a bad thing because there's only going to be more EMFs over time, from the strength of your Wi-Fi router in your living room to the amount of electronic devices that we have and cell phone and all that sort of thing. Like it's kind of crazy just how much is there that we don't see or appreciate, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is we can't see it. Just like you can't see the actual, technology in motion, which is, a fun thing to explain to people when they're using it for the first time, because you can't see that field and you can't see all the fields that we're surrounded with all the time. But they're there. And, the thing is your cells start to assimilate to the frequencies that they're surrounded with most often. So, if you're sitting in a room with a bunch of negative EMFs and, harmful signals to your cells, and your cells will start to drain their voltage or maybe match the frequency that they're surrounded by. That's not the best thing for our bodies, for our minds, and for our performance. But, that's where pEMF therapy comes in pretty strong. It does help to level set, to rebalance to reset the system so that the cells are functioning kind of on that level that they should be operating on. So very important to focus on to focus on just kind of getting the cells to be functioning on that frequency that they should be. That is, their optimal setting essentially.
Absolutely. Jessica, what's next for HAELO? What's on the horizon here?
Oh, getting halos in the hands of everyone that we possibly can. That's kind of that's where we're heading. Just continue to teach people about the technology. Obviously we have different sports teams that are using it. We have professional athletes, but we also have just the high performer in general. We have your everyday person that, maybe you're a mom, a dad, someone who just has a lot going on and they need that sort of support. And I think the cool thing about HAELO and pEMF is yes, this one is designed for high performers, but that is pretty much everybody in this day and age. Everybody is performing at, the best that they can, and this technology is really something that can benefit absolutely everybody. So we're just really in the mode of educating, bringing people to the technology, showing them how incredible it is and what it can do for them, continuing to kind of show up to events. Hopefully, we'll have some next year that we'll be able to continue introducing people to the technology at. But I think overall, it's just continuing to build on what we have, and make sure that we're showing it to as many people as we can, because at the end of the day, one thing that we firmly believe in, I think if you talk to any person who works with pEMF therapy out there, will all say the same thing, which is pEMF therapy is a very, very essential and game-changing tool for most everyone.
Absolutely. For people who want to keep up to date with all those things that y'all are doing, where can they find y'all at online and so on that way?
Online, our website is just halo.com, so you can check that out. That's HAELO. And then social media, Instagram's probably the best place to follow along if you want like consistent updates and see how other people are using the tech as well. And that's Halo_social. So that's probably the best place to continue to check in, get updates, and see what we're up to. And if we're at events, we'll make sure we post on our Instagram so people can see if we're in their city and all of that. But yeah, those are probably the main two channels.
You're not running a TikTok account yet,
No,
Jessica?
no, no, no. Not yet. I have TikTok deleted, so I'm not a TikToker. I believe in balance, and so I try to keep my social media endeavors very balanced as well. So I think TikTok being downloaded on my phone would probably not serve me very well. So if somebody else on my team wants to manage a TikTok account, then I can hand it off to them, but it's not going to be me doing it.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to see the Halo TikTok. That'll
Yeah.
be great.
It's like the
Jessica,
same thing every time. It's like let's hold the coil up and show them this little like magnet that's flicking around, and that's kind of what we would show. I feel like it could be a pretty popular page. People would probably be in the comments like, "What the heck am I looking at? What is this magic donut?" All those things. So, which we've heard before, so it wouldn't be the first time.
the magic donut. I like
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. Jessica, is there anything we missed as we were discussing today?
Oh gosh. I don't think so. I feel like we ran through pEMF and Halo pretty thoroughly. That was a that was a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate your time and all the insights that you shared today, Jessica. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.